Hello, good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
Good morning. I know some people are still doing the countdown. Welcome to the program. I'm Mao Yusuf.
And speaking of which, it's 4 days to Christmas. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Koka.
I didn't do the countdown.
I did.
But today is December 21. I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning and welcome.
Yeah, of course, Christmas has already started for several people. So the government came up with this decision yesterday, which we'll go and see right as we take you through some of the dailies this morning. So some of them are highlighting that, and of course, as expected. So, but maybe I should just start off with Leadership newspaper here this morning. Okay, well, maybe Daily Trust. Let me look at Daily Trust because they first highlighted, then you see some reactions moving forward. So the front page of Daily Trust here says Tinubu cuts bus fare by, look at that, 50%. So that's what the Daily reporting this morning. Declares free train trips. We're ready for implementation. Bus owners, book your tickets online. NRC tells travelers, air travelers excluded. Well, they said that they were trying to focus on the masses.
Mm-hmm. So, I got that memo.
So if you're not...
if you're traveling by air, you're excluded from the masses.
Masses don't go by air. Interesting.
Well, Chamberlain, in all honesty, though, I mean, there is a world of difference between paying anywhere from 150,000 naira for maybe a one-way ticket if you're lucky, if you're very lucky. Maybe you booked months ahead a return ticket. Maybe you'll be able to pay 150,000 naira for a return ticket. And paying right now, finding out how much transport is costing. I heard that only recently on one of the top transporters in Nigeria, going from Lagos to Abuja is roughly about 38,000 naira, 38 to 40,000 naira. So there's a world of difference between paying that and paying 40, between paying 150 or even 200,000 naira. Let's just do an average and say 200,000 naira and paying roughly 40,000 naira for transport. And so if there is that disparity, there's a disparity to even buy how many more seats. I think that the target is very much on point. I think that those who want to go by air, of course they too could do with some subsidy. Who doesn't like a discount? Everybody likes a discount. But then I think it's very important that how will I put it now, that the focus in terms of targeting the poorest of the poor or targeting those within a certain income bracket certainly makes a lot of sense in this season.
Well, I know some people will just wonder what the rationale really is about that. Are they trying to say, well, in fact, where does the bulk of the taxes come from? So...
let's not go there. The way taxes work is that if you earn more, you should pay more, and everybody should pay something in order that everybody can get the minimum.
Everybody should pay something.
Everybody should pay something.
Then some people will get something. They'll get breaks. Others don't get anything. That's just what this is about.
Are you a Republican?
Because at the end of the day, if you're saying, well, you go for the masses, we have to properly scrutinize all of that. Well, there you see Daily Trust highlighting all of that now, but you also get to find out, okay, well, if you're saying, no, we're targeting the masses, so in other words, anything can go on, just have whatever happens with those going by air, well, pay whatever you can because they think you can.
Well, if they feel so hard done by, then go by road.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Road is an option.
No.
If they feel the road transportation is there, if you feel like, oh, I really want to enjoy this, then go by road.
No,
if not, then just, go by air and keep quiet.
Well, okay.
It means you can afford it.
If they feel they don't care, then go for the taxes of the other people. Don't disturb certain other people because if you're saying that those folks don't matter because, look, they all pay taxes because if anything happens to the businesses of those people, those at the lower end of the ladder will be hugely affected.
Are you for real, Chamberlain? Are we really having this conversation?
Of course it has to happen because, I mean, everybody's a citizen. Everybody's chipping into the economy.
Can you believe your ears this morning?
The economy affects everybody.
Who are you speaking for this morning, Chamberlain?
Don't you see manufacturers complain?
Are you speaking for the businessmen or you're speaking for the people? Who are you speaking for?
Did you see the business manufacturers complain? Who did they manufacture for? Everybody. They didn't say I manufacture this for a group of people and this for the other group of people. No, it doesn't happen that way.
But
you can't give the impression to society that some people,
Chamberlain, on whose side are you this morning? On whose side are you, Chamberlain?
The matter is, while subsidy removal might have affected everyone, it certainly has affected some people more than some other people.
What did they tell us about subsidy? They said some people are stealing the money. It's benefiting the elite. So who's suffering more now?
Everybody is suffering. Well, I don't know if everybody is really suffering. I know I don't know if everybody is really suffering.
This is the kind of messaging they pass on.
I do not know if everybody, but I do know that a lot of people are suffering. And it is those people, it's like saying that the federal government wants to give bags of rice. Then they should be giving bags of rice to people who are owners of businesses. Are you for real?
No,
but that's essentially what you're asking for.
No, that's not.
That's essentially what you're saying.
No, that's
because that's what I'm affected. That's what you're saying, Chamberlain.
I'm still here. I can shed more light on what I'm saying. I'm the one saying it.
That's precisely what I hear. Ayo and Bukola, what
that's what you hear
this morning?
Doesn't mean that's what I'm saying.
What are you hearing this morning? Tell me the truth. What are you hearing this morning?
Well, Bukola, go ahead.
Marpa, I'm always on your side, but they're just they're an exception today, and for good reason too. Time was in this country, particularly before the crisis of prices caused by the increase in Jet One fuel, A1 fuel, when you could travel, a return ticket for max 80,000 naira, and if it was a longer distance, across the country, max you could spend 100,000 naira, but that is not the case anymore. And there's a lower middle class that would prefer to travel, by air, and they deserve a discount as well, in my own view. There are quite a number of people who would prefer, the comfort and safety and shorter travel distance time that air transport provides, and they would rather not go by road. So everyone deserves a discount, and I'm on the side of Chamberlain as far as taxes for the elite is concerned.
Well, I'm on your side, Marpa, this morning, and so is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, okay? So let's just keep it at that. There are some things they call luxury, all right? In those days, you will remember in the not too distant past, some minister came on air and told us that there are Nigerians who import pizza from different parts of the world. How? By air. So yes, I agree with you, Chamberlain, Marpa. If you feel hard done by, there are what they call road airplanes or something like that. You can fly on the road. All right, so, and there are luxury
buses. I don't know about that, Ayo. You just might have to define that.
Go online, you'll find some of these vehicles that they
flying by road?
Yes, that they fly by road. They are luxury coaches, okay? So, Chamberlain, that's an option for you, but Marpa, even the president is on your side this morning. It's back to you. Finish your papers.
Well, I know that Labour has already responded. Are you dumbfounded? Did you lost your voice?
It's not possible.
Ayo, thank you, Jerry. Just when you're looking for female support, you will not get it, Bukola. You have to tell me whose side you're on this morning.
I'm on your side.
See if they give them, they won't take it. So you see what we're
facing? I said everybody wants a discount. That is the truth.
No, wants is different from need.
I want, if I'm going to travel by air, I know families traveling because air travel is too expensive and they're really afraid. But the people who are traveling anyway, going to work or coming to work this morning, the roads are busy. You can see that people are taking whatever it is that they can and they're traveling anyway.
This gives the impression as if, is there even an upper class anymore? Is there even a real middle class in this country, by the way? They give the impression as though, those flying by air, it's very easy for them.
No,
they
it's
can
not.
all
No,
easily
no,
afford it.
no, I don't
Some
think
have no choice. They just have to because they have to meet up with certain things.
That is the truth.
And then they are down there.
I understand completely, Chamberlain, but the truth of the matter, I get you. I mean, I truly do get you. And the truth of the matter is, I think largely the reason why we're where we are is because our rail transport is not fully functional. I can tell you that if we had a rail system from Abuja to Lagos, the airlines too will find it very difficult to find passengers in this season. I can tell if we had a fully functional rail system from here to Lagos, from Abuja to Kano, not Kaduna, to Kano, the airlines will struggle even in this season to find customers because of the prices. And, you know, federal government is now saying zero prices for rail lines. I thank God that we have someone from the NRC coming to talk to us about how that's going to work, because I also see that there might be total chaos as a result of, you know, free transportations.
No, I said they have to book online. Okay, well, he'll shed light. Let's see what it goes.
Yes, but let's see how that, but I hope that it won't be, because we've seen that before. We've seen that in the past and how it was implemented. But let us, you know, let us focus on the focus right now. The truth of the matter is some people are worse hit than some other people. And that's the reason why, you know, I can say that they're targeting the right class of people first. First is the key word there.
No, it's not first.
Well, for me, I think it should be... No, for this Yuletide season, that's over. First, you know...
That's not first, though. It's only. That's what I heard. Yeah. Only, no first or second. That's the only thing.
Yes, for the Yuletide season, maybe it's only. But at least much later, then, you know, we can all begin to have this conversation.
And by the way,
everybody needs this discount.
So, do we have a... Look, okay, I think I would love to...
There's subsidy somewhere. So if you really feel like, look,
subsidy where?
There's subsidy for the transportation system. So if you really feel like I really cannot afford air travel, there's an option. You can go by road.
Like, we don't know. Well, you'll get to hear the narratives eventually. I hope it's been properly worked out as to who is going to get this. How is this going to be structured? Is it going to be... Anyway, we'll hold on.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, right?
And see.
But,
no,
you know, Labour has responded from what I hear. And
yeah, you see it in Delhi.
They're not impressed. They don't look
like... they're not?
They're not, no.
Oh, okay. I'm done with the trust.
Oh, well, yeah. That was your lead story. That's
nice and easy.
Nice and easy. Well, let's look at Vanguard newspapers now. And Rivers Crisis is what is taking their own fancy this morning. Fubara will implement Abuja agreements. That's according to Rivers State Government. You find it right there on the front page. Rivers Crisis, Fubara will implement Abuja agreements. You also have a number of riders to that story. G27 lawmakers withdraw impeachment notice against governor. Drama as legislators move to withdraw Fubara suit stalls. We have no instruction to withdraw suit, that's according to government lawyer. We aren't aware of withdrawal notice, that's according to the Rivers State Government House. Okay. Tinubu's intervention in nullity, rape on democracy, that's according to IYC, Niger Delta Groups. Fubara's 100,000 Naira Christmas bonus excites NLC Rivers workers. So at least Labour is responding positively to one type of bonus. Rivers Crisis, a threat to Nigeria's democracy. That's according to PDP senators. But the lead story right there, you say it yourself. Rivers Crisis, Fubara will implement Abuja agreements. I think that we can leave it there for Vanguard newspapers. But just before we move on from it, Mr. and Mrs. is right there. Why is Mrs. upset this morning?
He doesn't get subsidy.
Oh, dear. Okay, so Mrs. is upset because, you know, she says, what rubbish are you talking about? There is a difference between family planning and planning another family. Mr. says, who's planning another family? We've tried some family planning methods, but they didn't work. I just want to try them with another woman, that's all.
What?
Well, this is definitely, you know, right up the money this morning when she says there's a whole world of difference between planning another family and family planning. Let's leave it there for Vanguard newspapers.
Well, did I hear another wives on strike? Let's move on to Leadership newspaper this morning. And, of course, Marco already told you earlier that Labour has frowned at the FG's 50% cut in transport fare. And that's exactly how leadership captions it. Now, wait for the riders, especially this first one. Says, government killing cow with mouth.
Killing what?
Yeah, you heard me right.
No, I didn't hear you.
I'll take it again, Ayo. Says, government killing cow with mouth.
Cow.
Yes.
Audio cow.
Malu.
Audio cow.
Well, cow. Cattle. Well, one this time.
Well.
With mouth. So what was the cow?
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
Is that page 4 that is, right?
Yeah, page 4.
Exactly.
Of Leadership newspaper.
Audio
you have
cow.
to do the honors yourself this morning. Wow. Listen to another rider. Passengers without tickets won't board free train that's ascribed to the NRC. Of course, you'll be hearing more of that on the program. And road transport workers doubt implementation policy. So we're right to ask about the structure. You know, how will it be implemented?
So when government is saying...
Who are those that have been engaged on this policy, and how exactly will it work? Because transportation is, pretty much private sector driven. When
government is saying that, people should register online.
Well, that's for NRC, but a huge number of Nigerians travel by road.
Well, exactly my point.
Yeah. And
there
they patronize
are transporters that
luxury buses that you talked about earlier.
There are, transporters, road transporters that ply, that you register online. You get your tickets and all online. Are they going to do the same thing are they expecting the NURTW to do the same? If that is, then we have some accountability systems.
Well, if we went by the information provided by the Minister of Solid Minerals, he says all of those unions have been engaged, and there's a plan worked out. But how exactly it will be implemented is one of the questions that we'll be asking on your behalf this morning.
Well, we'll see it.
Let's see some other stories on the front page of Leadership newspaper. Go to the top of the paper. Nigeria's debt stock inches to 87.91 trillion naira in Q3, and that's ascribed to the DMO. And there's another one that is cheery about Nigeria's debt stock having been reduced. External debt now, not domestic debt, as a result of the redemption of a Eurobond. Let's leave it there for Leadership newspaper.
Ho, 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 ho. Yes, I'm Santa this morning. I bring you good news on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct. Yes, and it's talking about the same debt, only this time I don't know whose figures you want to look at. Nigerian News Direct says this morning: Nigeria's external debt falls. I could just leave it there. It's decreased, right? That's what it means, right? Mm-hmm. It falls to $41.59 billion. It's still rather high, but hey, it's better than nothing. As DMO redeems $500 million Euro bond. The details of that you'll find on page 10 of the Nigerian News Direct this morning, and a pack of other stories you'll find interesting. That's the Nigerian News Direct today.
Okay. Have you looked at The Guardian?
No.
Okay, take a look at The Guardian. They're coming up with this one. 78,446 inmates in dire straits over 750 naira daily feeding costs. Yeah.
Well, who's that? Inmates?
Inmates.
Yeah.
So...
I know that recently they were defending, Nigeria prisons came to defend their budget at the Senate, and it was quite a scene, because I remember that I don't know whether he's chairman of the committee or just a part of the committee. I remember the former governor of Edo State, Adams Oshiomhole, who was representing Edo North in the Senate, taking them up on the amount they're using to feed the prison dogs and the amount they're using to feed prison inmates. So apparently the dogs, the amounts allocated to the dogs far more than what they're using to feed human beings who are inmates in the prison. And that stark reality, that stark difference came out while the prisons, the correctional facilities, I don't know why correctional facility is not yet sticking to my tongue. While the correctional facility people were making their presentation and defending their budget before the Senate. So, yeah, what you're just highlighting there on the front page of, what daily is that?
This is Guardian.
Yeah.
Security dogs earn higher budgets.
Yes.
They get 800 naira per diem.
Yes, that came out. Came out, and he raised it. He said, "Oh, so you mean we use more money to feed the prison dogs than we used to feed the inmates?" That is very interesting.
Well, basically, they just allocate more money for the dogs. It's not that the dogs get all this.
Because when you see the dogs, you'll be like, "Oh, poor dogs." Poor dogs. Who's speaking for the dogs? Because obviously we are allocating money to the dogs. But when you look at our dogs, you have to ask questions about whether or not those monies are really being spent on the canine department of each of these facilities.
Oh, even the dogs don't have any dog in the fight anymore these days. But look at what's beside this one. Yaba Psychiatric Hospital records 100% admission spike, says CMD.
Oh, wow.
That's telling.
Yeah, it is telling. Mental health is a big deal, a super big deal. We really downplay it around here. We do. And we need to pay more attention to it.
That's the Guardian this morning.
Okay, I don't know what's causing this, but Nigerian Tribune is certainly focusing on politics right there. You see, Amosun blasts Oshomole, accuses him of conducting worst primaries in history of democracy, cautions him from playing blame game in his ouster as APC chairman. Okay, so
where's this coming from?
You shouldn't have said that. I just said I don't know the backstory. I wish I did. I would have given you a bit more. But page 2 is where you find details. 2 former governors. Interesting. At each other's throat. One now a sitting senator, the other a former senator as well. So you want to know the story? You want to know the nitty-gritty? Go to page 2 of Nigerian Tribune this morning. They also have this: Rivers Assembly begins peace deal, withdraws impeachment notice against Fubara. And then look at this. This is to remove the rumors that had earlier made the rounds. 2024 UTME, no increase in registration fee. That's according to JAM. So I think we had seen some of the dailies carry that there was going to be an increase in JAM fees, but looks like there is a debunking of that story, that JAM doesn't intend to increase registration fees. The details somewhere on page 19. Even though if they had, I mean, I think people might be able to understand, but maybe they too are also feeling the pains of the people. And I don't want to worry us, but it's right here. Nigeria's public debt stock now 87 trillion naira. That's according to DMO. So while we party this December, I think it was Kayode who was talking about dirty December or no dirty December.
That's a drink.
Keep it at the back of your mind that we'll have debts to pay in the new year. Okay? I think we can. Okay, there's also this Senate panel asks IGP to produce CAC registrar within 24 hours. Our story is right there. They have a number of other stories. I mean, it is a very busy front page this morning on the front page of Nigerian Tribune. But let's leave it there for the paper.
And take a look next at Daily Independent. You know, while we're rejoicing about 50% reduction in transport fares, you know, other sectors are really not smiling from what Daily Independent is telling us. Listen to this: 5th generation network. That's what we know popularly as 5G. Telcos struggle to deploy services as subscribers' interest fades. Harsh economy, high forex rate, others slow penetration. Reps demand quality service delivery for Nigerians. Now, this is quite interesting. Subscribers' interest fades. Has there been any subscriber interest in, you know, the 5th generation network in the first place? You know, and that informed, I believe, the question, you know, our political editor asked the Minister of Communication in that very interesting interview, you know, from about 2 weeks ago, about whether or not 5G exists in Nigeria. And the minister, you know, was quick to explain that it does indeed exist, you know, but because of the variation in the availability of infrastructure depending on where you are in the country. Perhaps that's why it may not work where you are. But if there has been interest in the 5G service in the first place, is what I'm curious about this morning.
Oh, there are people who are very much interested in faster network, faster internet, and that's what it's all about. But the fact of the matter remains that 2G population is more than 3G population. 3G population is more than 4G population, and 4G population is more than 5G population. And 5G population isn't as, there are more than
depending on
fiber
the sector
optics.
Where you operate, right?
Depending on the area of Nigeria where you are, which was the reason people were raising issues about about INEC uploading election results real time at the time. Yes, so that exists, but then the minister is also correct in talking about the infrastructure. There was a battle that had to be fought by ISPs in terms of what they call right-of-way, interstate rights-of-way and all of those. I think there's been some negotiations around that. Let's hope that within the next few years, few months, maybe hopefully next year, we'll be able to have some conversations and collaborations that will help us to see these infrastructure deployed faster.
Absolutely. Well, and that's why 2G population needs subsidy, such that their interest can be raised in 5G.
Well, 2G population don't use air travel.
Oh, you're going back there, are you? Chamberlain is going to come for you.
Well,
let's take a look at some more stories from front page of Daily Independent. Go to the top of the nameplate. Rivers crisis. We won't return to PDP. Defected lawmakers. There you have it. That's going to form quite some talking point in the coming days. Withdraw impeachment notice against Governor Fubara. And, that came from yesterday. And finally, Lagos orders evacuation of trucks along Tinkan Port Corridor. That's not the only place where we have that problem, by the way. We hope that the Lagos State government can take a look also at Lagos-Badagry Expressway. But let's leave it there for Daily Independent.
The Nigerian Observer is also celebrating that promise from the president, relief for travelers as FG slashes road fare by 50% at Yuletide. Grants zero fare for rail travel. Why? Find the details of that on the front page of the paper today. Didn't mention anything about air travel, but hey, maybe the details are on the inside. At the bottom of that page, you'll find, well, just beneath the picture, Tinubu nominates 11 Supreme Court justices, seeks Senate confirmation. And there's been some analysis about the personalities that are involved in this, but the details you'll find there. Right above the nameplate, Oza Oil Field delivers 75,500 barrels of crude to 2 Edo refineries. That's exciting. That's the Nigerian Observer this morning.
Okay, let's go with This Nigeria next. They focus on a different matter entirely. It's politics. Rivers lawmakers withdraw impeachment notice against Fubara. So that's what you see right there. And then Christmas, Tinubu approves free train ride, 50% cut in transport fare. You see services to run from December 21 to January 4. So, yeah, this is what it is right here. So we'll look at that anyway. So we'll look at what the management of the road transport and economists, what they think of this policy, if they think it's been properly thought out, if they think it's way to go. So, and by all means, too, if you're watching, tell us what you think of this, by the way. We'd love to hear from you out there. After all, if you use any of the services, we want to hear from you because it's expected that I think the authorities might have done their homework coming up with this policy. So that's where you come in. That's This Nigeria today.
Well, Business Day, excuse me, is looking at the energy sector. Fled gas worth 696 billion naira can power millions of households. Looks at how much we're actually wasting by not converting gas that has been flared into energy. That story is right there on the front page. You also have right there, Nigerians cut purchases for gold traditions as Christmas nears. These are some of the consequences of the economic situation that is currently presenting itself before many Nigerians. You also have right there on the front page, Nigeria's debt rises to 87.9 trillion, external portion drops. Okay, so while the debt is rising, our external debt seems to be coming down. So some good news or some bright ray to the rather gloomy figures of debt. Let's leave it there for Business Day.
And do we still have Nigerian Tribune available, Ayo? I believe that will end our newspaper review this morning. There's a lot, to unpack for you, particularly coming from some of the big stories. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
The directives unilaterally suspended the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria by virtue of an attempt to reverse a court order recognizing the Honorable Edison Ihe as the Speaker and directing that the remainder of members of the House of Assembly constituted the forum for legislative business. That the directives also contravenes the hallowed doctrine and practice of separation of powers, particularly as it affects the responsibility of the judiciary. Can Mr. President, on the executive arm of government, overrule the decisions of courts of competent jurisdiction? It is therefore preposterous for the President to direct that the people who have existed service for personal reasons be reabsorbed.
All right, so Henry Akine joins us. He's the National Legal Advisor Committee for Defense of Human Rights, at CDHR. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, we've seen a lot being said and some being done about the political scenario in Rivers State. I mean, ever since then, the governor has said no price is too big to pay for peace. We've seen the state lawmakers go ahead, sit. They've withdrawn the impeachment notice. So it does appear as though everything seems to be running in its own direction. To some people in the political class, they're smoothly. But to lawyers, I think quite a number of them, we've heard them think differently about this matter. So tell us, what is your impression of how things are panned out so far?
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, it's true that there is no price that will be too much for peace. Peace is priceless. However, there are more fundamental considerations when you want to pursue peace. There may be conditions that will really define whether that approach to pursuing peace is appropriate or otherwise. But so much has actually happened in Rivers State. Our worries have been heightened, and our concerns reasonably so. But What's important really here is the political crisis in Rivers State are actually really disturbing in terms of the development and progress in the state, the expectations of the people with respect to good governance, and then the primary responsibility of government as provided in our constitution under Section 14, which essentially is to continue to enhance the welfare of citizens and then ensure the protection of lives and property. And then when there are these distractions between and amongst the political leaders and public office holders, the legislature very important, which is the foundation of democracy, and then the executive, which is the veritable tool for executing government programs, then it's quite obvious that there will be challenges in development and then the expectations of the citizens. But the issues of law that I've observed and I've actually come clear on these matters are fundamental because they are constitutional issues. We cannot purport to pursue peace and at the expense of extant constitutional provisions. And more so, when those who are at the center of all of these skirmishes are actually political office holders that have taken sworn to oath in this country. Every governor of the 36 states of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has assumed office after swearing to an oath to observe and protect and uphold the provisions of our Constitution. And that would mean that in any engagement, any interaction, any relationship you would have as a governor, what must define and determine your approach to that pursuit would be the provisions of the Constitution. There is no compromise about that. The same applies to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who also has sworn to the oath of office to observe and obey and protect the provisions of our Constitution. It would mean that even when you're acting as a mediator, but of course, assuming that position as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you must observe and protect the provisions of our Constitution. You can't undermine or overrule those provisions. The same applies to legislators, including the legislators elected to the Rivers State House of Assembly. Yeah. So these are very critical concerns, and I think that across the country, everybody has spoken about these issues.
So tell us, for those who argue that there is alternative dispute resolution and that this is part of leveraging on that, do they have a point?
No, Chamberlain, I'm afraid they don't. There is no consideration or provision in any section of our Constitution that talks about alternative dispute resolution. It's a veritable strategy for dispute resolution, no doubt. It's encouraging, no doubt. But it remains the fact that you cannot pretend to be resolving any dispute amongst disputants, either as a mediator or any other position you occupy in that regard, to subvert or overrule or suspend the provisions of the Constitution. So that argument, I believe, is a weak one, particularly with respect to the provisions of the Constitution. It is not in any way to undermine the advantage of alternative dispute resolution in any dispute amongst disputants, really.
Mr. Ekine, can you tell us precisely, what areas of the Constitution you think have been breached here through the alternative dispute resolution, assuming there were any?
Yes, Mark, our Constitution is very clear to the effect that the powers vested in the governor of a state to constitute his cabinet are exclusive to the governor. And that will mean that there is no mechanism or no consideration whatsoever that anybody will assume any power to direct a governor who to appoint to constitute his cabinet. And that I mean appointment as commissioners or special advisors or any other position. It's exclusive to the governor, just as it is to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And being a constitutional matter, even when you're determining any issue in any mediation that relates to the powers and functions of a governor as provided in the Constitution, then you must be guided by the provisions of the Constitution and be very firm at that. It doesn't matter who is involved. So when it came to that point, you would have simply told everybody who was in the meeting that, yes, when it comes to the issue of commissioners of a government, particularly the government of Rivers State, that nobody can do anything other than allow the governor to exercise his constitutional power And anything other than that is interference. And interference with the functions of the governor of a state with respect to the provisions of the Constitution is a violation of the provision of the Constitution. And that's one. Then another is where Section 109, which has become the most of the talking point in the last weeks in Rivers State, is to the effect, particularly subsection 1, paragraph G, which no doubt and unarguably, even the affected 27 legislators admit to that fact and uphold that position up till now, that they have defected. They are not mincing any word. They are not pretending. They said that to the governor, to the president. And after that meeting, even as at yesterday, they assert that position, that they have defected from the People's Democratic Party, which is the political party that sponsored them to office, and they have moved to the All Progressives Congress. And this is a very serious constitutional matter. We have had this mischief in this country that legislators will, at will, and as often as they will do so, move from one political party to another. If we continue this way, you'll find a situation where they will move in, move out, cross carpet, and recross carpet. Then the Constitution went on to avoid this mischief and then insisted that you must not, if you do that, if you vacate, then of course, if you so defect, then you vacate the seat. And when we even observe the purported excuse that the legislators in Rivers State, those gentlemen, 27 of them, alluded to the reason, even as up to yesterday, when one Inimi George was speaking, I think it's on your platform, he was actually saying, oh, we elected the president, we supported the president, and so we have to move on to the party of the president to help him succeed. That is no ground known by our Constitution to justify the defection from a political party that sponsored the candidates to an elective position and then to another and retaining that seat. That is not known to our law. So that would simply mean you jettison the Constitution, you throw the Constitution away, or like a military junta, you suspended the Constitution and had other considerations to justify that defection. So it is a clear violation of the provision of the Constitution. Everybody's spoken up to that, that whatever resolution it will be, that you would justify that constitutional infraction. That's unfortunate in a constitutional democracy. And then another issue, again, is the issue of law. When a House of Assembly has properly taken through the stages of lawmaking, and then they have enacted a law, it is only known that it is the court that will test the veracity or appropriateness of that law otherwise, and then either sustain that law or pull it down. And where the Rivers State House of Assembly, it remains on record that the Rivers State House of Assembly had received the appropriation bill from the governor. And the process started with the governor considering the appropriation bill in draft at cabinet with his commissioners. And then when they presented that bill before the assembly, it is only presumed that that law remained valid until pulled down by the judiciary. And then that law had taken the stages, they said the first reading. We are not members of that house. I believe that the members of the Rivers State House of Assembly that remained at that time had read that bill the first time, had gone into the second reading, constituted themselves perhaps as committee of the whole, and may have considered the bill clause by clause, and then gone through the third reading, transmitted to a governor, and he has sent it.
Mr. Ikine, it's very interesting that you point out the parts of the Constitution which you say, invalidates or says that those who have defected as lawmakers need to vacate their seats. But we also know that I think parts of the Constitution also say that it is the Speaker who directs them to, move or to vacate, who announces that those seats are vacant. Because only yesterday, at the level of the National Assembly, it was only yesterday when a new senator was sworn in that we heard that the seat, which had been occupied by the current Minister of Works, I think Senator Dave Umahi, was just declared vacant, and that was given effect to by the Senate President. So if that is the rule, that is the way it works, even at the national level, the question is, how did the Speaker in the Rivers State House of Assembly, who declared the seats of the 27 people vacant, emerge? Under what circumstances did he emerge?
Yes.
Is it possible for 4 lawmakers to just be on their own? 4 lawmakers whom we had heard had been suspended initially by this same House, be on their own and say, oh, we've elected a speaker among ourselves. And then these 4 lawmakers receive a budget. And under 24 hours, a budget is passed. And we say, oh, it's only a court that can, invalidate that sort of law. Doesn't it also turn the law upside down and turn the law on its head?
Yes, thank you, Mekwe. This is very important, and that's why I'm here, to the best of my knowledge. No, it doesn't, and let me take them one after another. Clearly, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria established a House of Assembly for each of the respective 36 states of the country under Section 90 of the Constitution. And Rivers State has one. And then the Constitution went on to say, in considering the constitution of creation of a House of Assembly for any state, that is to assume that if a new state today is created in Nigeria, for INEC to delineate constituencies, state constituencies, it should not be less than 24 and shouldn't be more than 40. That established. That's, let me quickly state, it's only in respect to the creation of a House of Assembly and then the delineation of the constituencies. That's established. I'm laying this foundation so that when we get to the issue of the 4, we would have gotten this very clearly understood. Now, you have also the Constitution extant that there shall be a speaker for each of the 36 houses of assembly. Rivers State has a House of Assembly, and there has a speaker, and there shall always be a speaker at all times. Now, what has happened in Rivers State House of Assembly was that some 27 members, remember, including, assuming without conceding though, that Honorable Martin Amaewhule was the substantive speaker at the time, but it's on record, and you would agree, that himself, that same self-speaker, also defected. So like the other 26 and himself, if it is true that Section 109 of our Constitution should be given credence, then it meant that he also has lost his seat. So Martin Amaewhule and the other 26 members who defected, I still hold my strong position and view that they had lost their seat. So let us assume that some 4 other members, they remain members of the House of Assembly, howbeit purportedly suspended. And let me pose a question. If a school has 10 student population, and then 5 were on suspension, and then 5 were expelled, how many are left as the students of that school? It is the 5 that were on suspension. Because on suspension, you're still a student of that school. But those expelled and rusticated are no longer students of that school. So there are 4 members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. The Rivers State House of Assembly didn't go extinct. Controversially, there were 4 members. And then when that opportunity arose, and don't forget, supported by a decision, or rather a ruling of a high court in Rivers State, it gave credence to 4 members. So at some point we had, and we still have, for me, and that's my position, we still have only 4 members of the Rivers State House of Assembly. And is that permissible or acceptable in our Constitution? Yes, Maupe and Chamberlain. The Constitution didn't say that.
Barrister Kine, if I may come in there, pardon me. Even if the 4 lawmakers who were suspended remain the valid members of the Rivers State Assembly, it would seem from what you're saying that they are all complicit in turning the law on its head. Either the 26 lawmakers who defected and as a matter of law have lost their seats, or the 4 lawmakers to whom the state governor presented the budget. But why do you think the governor is going ahead with this agreement, even though it's alien to the law, according to what lawyers are saying? Is it a matter of self-preservation? Because we would assume that the governor has lawyers who are advising him.
Yes, thank you very much. And just as we assume that the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has lawyers, not just in his cabinet, but has lawyers who advise him, and has the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, whom I even expected should have been in that meeting. Because considering the issues they were going to deliberate in that meeting, they were constitutional and legal issues. So the Honorable, the Attorney General of the Federation ought to have been in that meeting, ought to have had a closed-door consideration of these issues with Mr. President and ought to have advised Mr. President. And that's why we're having this kind of situations in this country. Sometimes it actually aches one, really, when you see that things happen this way and we get talking. Now, I was laying a foundation which would really give a perspective to how Mr. Governor may be justified to appear before a House of Assembly. Mr. Governor is not a member of the River State House of Assembly, and then he would only await when a House of Assembly accepts his communication to them to appear before a House. The same applies to the President for any business, whether to present an appropriation bill. So it will mean that the governor had communicated the River State House of Assembly. Remember that I said there has never been a time that the River State House of Assembly has ceased to exist. We have only had internal skirmishes within the River State House of Assembly. It started with the issue of the tussle to the leadership, who is the speaker. Both Martin Sameule and Edison Ehie acclaimed themselves at different times to be speakers. And don't also forget that Edison Ehie has proclaimed that he has been elected even before the defection of these 26, 27 members. And then there is a court ruling that seemed to have affirmed his position as the speaker. So there is a House of Assembly. Is it properly constituted in terms of members? Yes, I have said that the Constitution did not envisage any situation expressly where a House of Assembly may deplete onto about even one person. And can there be such circumstance? Yes, it may not have happened. There may be 32 members, and then all 31 may have a situation that's unfortunately perhaps they die. Because the circumstances you may cease to be a member of a House of Assembly or any legislative house could be death.
Perhaps one of the challenges that we're dealing with here, you know, for instance, maybe just to begin, would you say that there has been a quorum in all of the issues that have been raised on the floor of the House with these 4 members? If you can respond to that in 20 seconds.
And the simple answer is yes. And maybe if I need to justify that so that those who would have said, what is this gentleman saying? Yes, in the sense that the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the drafters were very careful to have just said the quorum for any legislative house shall be 1/3 of members. It didn't say 1/3 of 24, 1/3 of 40, or 1/3 of 32.
And you don't see anything wrong with that one. Anyway, but the question that I'd really love to ask you is, I mean, given the interventions that have come on this matter from various quarters, there are those who said that what the River State situation required was a political situation, not necessarily a legal, situation and all of that. Of course, political situations within the ambits of the law. Amakwe asked you that question the other time, whether or not the president indeed broke any law or breached the Constitution in any way. So would you say that this is a political intervention to stave off further breakdown of law and order, or it is something that's just been done to arm twist the law?
I may be afraid to ask, what is political solution with respect to any provisions of our law? There's no such thing. Sometimes when we want convenience, we create things that don't exist. In a constitutional democracy, what governs everything we do as far as government is concerned? It's not community meeting, for goodness sake. What governs everything we do as far as institutions and authorities of government are concerned? That's the reason we have the Constitution. If the Constitution and the provisions of the Constitution cannot address them, then the courts should do so. Nothing like political solution. I am not undermining any disposition to peaceful resolution to any dispute. But what is that dispute? Do you know, in law, as lawyers, there are certain matters that are best decided in court by full litigation, where certain declarations will be made that you cannot, by way of probably settlement and arrange the issue of title to land, for example. So for me, and I still submit, that once the constitutional issues arose, it shouldn't have been political. Who are we actually trying to pamper here? Was there any individual who is above the state? What is the rule of law?
But Barrister Kine, a very quick one here. If, in line with the agreement brokered by the president, all court cases are withdrawn, will that mark the end of this conversation we're having?
I'm afraid it may serve the interests of some individuals, but it wouldn't. And why I say it wouldn't is, and that's even the best way for Nigeria, it shouldn't, because otherwise we are laying a precedent where our constitution will at will be suspended even in the democratic regime and then apply any discretion, and then it becomes acceptable. So I think that it shouldn't, so that we continue to insist that our constitution should guide every step that our authorities must take. If you withdraw, if claimants and litigants, that is, those applicants go to court and file notices of withdrawal or discontinuance of their suits, does that change the position that where legislators defect without considering or complying with the requirements of Constitution, that they have lost their seats? We can't cease to turn that. It shouldn't be an exception in the case of Rivers State. Will that change the situation where a law that has been validly passed should be re-invited and then reconsidered because a president directed it should be so? Would that change the position that the governor's power to, on his own, decide who to be appointed?
When people say, for instance, when you say a president directed, and then they go all out, the people that were all in the room, are they babies? They could either say yes or no. If they feel that this is not it's not what they want, they just say, no, this won't happen. And then they move on and say, listen, we won't violate the laws. But if they call all out and say, okay, we'll comply with this, what then do the people do?
Chamberlain, let me quickly also bring this to another point of law. I'm afraid I'll be speaking strongly more on law. Chamberlain, it is our law that you cannot enter into agreement for any common purpose to violate any provisions of our Constitution, even if you are 1,000 of you in that room and you all agree unanimously. So these are the issues we have to look at critically. I don't know what I'm faulting, really. Even if the entire community congregated at Aso Rock and then agreed to violate a provision of our Constitution, would we say because they all agreed to it?
So
this is a constitutional democracy.
We'll then say that, fine, if that's the case for a lot of people, then we'll be looking to see how many lawyers will go to court to challenge some of these things, to correct these ills if they perceive so. So those are the things that society expects lawyers to do.
Exactly. You now have spoken to my direction of thought. This is what we should do as a nation, including the media and everybody.
This is not the first of this kind of scenario. We don't see these things happen. So that's why people keep wondering. We've seen several scenarios. I mean, you say justice must not just be done, but must be seen to have been done. And then they see certain things happen, and then the same judiciary, and they tell you, well, that is the law. So sometimes you just wonder what people face with these days.
Chamberlain, I agree with you absolutely. And that's why I recall that it was on the 10th of December, on a Sunday, when we issued a press release on our press conference in commemoration of the World Human Rights Day. We made a point that the judiciary in this country, and I make bold to still say it even on national TV, that the judiciary in this country has been murdered and probably only awaiting interment, burial, really. Murdered in so many ways. It's unfortunate that these are the kind of situations that we should have had the judiciary to stand firm. But what we see, including my colleagues, we file suits, we file all kinds of suits, even in courts of coordinate jurisdiction, and then conflicting orders, even as we continue to condemn those instances, and granting ex parte applications to the extent that will very enormously affect the substantive prayers. These are the issues in the judiciary. But then that would not deter anyone who is determined to uphold the provisions of our Constitution. And I am one that the Constitution is supreme. And when we keep saying rule of law, let our viewers understand what indeed is rule of law. It's the predominance of the law, the supremacy of the law, as distinguished from mere arbitrariness, which is what is playing out. Right. And it's also separated from mere discretion of any individual. Even if you hold the highest office in this country, the rule of law must prevail.
All right, we'll have to thank you for coming on this morning, Mr. Henry Ekine. We'll be back in just a moment. Remember that...
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So we'll talk next about that the Christmas / for transport fares. Yeah, that's where your views will come in, so don't go away.
Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser. Or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, and Roku. Channels Television, ubiquitous.
Because of socio-gravitational pull of the period, which transporters always cash on to increase fares astronomically. In recognition of the economic situation of the country, which the president is working hard to turn around, President Tinubu wants Nigerians to be able to travel within Nigeria to wherever they want to go to meet their loved ones without the extra burden of paying exorbitantly for interstate public transportation. It is in this wise that the president is announcing through us that beginning from tomorrow, that's the 21st of December, Nigerians willing to travel can board public transport via minibuses, luxury buses at 50% discount of current cost, and all our train services on the routes the trains currently serve at zero cost to and fro on their travels this holiday season. This special presidential intervention will commence tomorrow, Thursday, December 21, and it will end on January 4, 2024. The president has already directed the police department and the Department of State Services, the military, and all other security agencies to work collaboratively to ensure the holiday period is safe without any security breach in any part of the country.
All right, welcome back. Yes, indeed, we'll be taking a look at that decision by the government. So we've got two gentlemen here with us. Mr. Fidel Okira is the Managing Director, Nigeria Railway Corporation. We also do have Ahmed Adamu, who is an Associate Professor, Department of Economics, Nile University of Nigeria, Abuja. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for
Good morning. Compliment.
Well, we had a bit of back and forth this morning on this policy on the show. We're just wondering, how will it work? Is it the way to go or not? Do we have data? What do they rely on? Is it well thought out? So we'll wait to see what he was thinking. But for the Railway Corporation, Mr. Okira, at zero cost. So you could imagine that there might be a rush for that, because you have people who may have not initially thought, should I not? So let's go try it and see if it's free. After all, people love free things. Okay. So how are you taking this in?
This is not the first time. We did it 2 years ago.
Okay.
It was hectic, and I say we'll be yet to recover from that.
Oh.
But however, what is government for? Government is to make sure that people have comfort as much as possible, and we are quite willing and wishing to provide that service. You know, you don't forget, in more than other developed world, they get this thing either directly or indirectly. You call during the COVID, even companies, private companies, we are giving relief, and those without job, like in UK, US, everywhere, at least provide the minimum something to live in. So it's a good thing that the government considered we should do a free service, but they're also willing to provide the resources to do it. We are hoping this time they are going to give us fuel, and those 15 days we are going to provide the free service. They are also willing to provide at least the money we pay to the cleaners for the security.
Did that happen the last time, 2 years ago?
No,
it
was that. No, it didn't.
Okay, that's why I say you have to recover from that.
Yeah.
Wait, how? These are the NRC still has debts to pay or infrastructure?
Yeah, we bought we bought diesel to run those services. And, you know, passenger service don't really make it's a sort of service that government is providing because of the impact on the economy. The impact on the commerce when people can move their products at a very reasonable rate is quite, I can say it's a powerful, and you can't quantify it in terms of naira and kobo. That's what I would say. But this time, we'll be giving notice to we are already on the e-platform, e-ticketing platform. What we are trying to do that if you have not secured your ticket online, don't come to the station. Or like before now, we check you into the platform because you can get the ticket at the station. But we want to ensure, since it is free, to go on your phone, use the app, use the online to get your ticket before coming. Because the counter at the station will be closed. Because it will be difficult to manage. A person may just be going somewhere else and try to change his mind and say, I can follow this train to Kaduna and also come back. While instead of saying, don't let me use it, but ensure you get your ticket before you come to the station.
But the last time this was done, or when you tried them going online, were they compliant? Did you still have people coming there without getting online and insisting that they were the most?
So we have a term, we can still come to the station and buy, because we have to give room for those people who don't have the
facility
assets to go. But for these 15 days, we are shutting that facility to come to the station and buy.
I really feel so. From the little, from the little that you have said right now, you've actually said a lot. The only question I'm going to ask is, I hope you didn't hear about this like everybody else did. Did you hear about it on TV?
No. we walked the cost. Throughout last weekend, we were working at the ministry.
Okay, so
providing data.
Okay, so you were already given an inkling as to what precisely could happen.
Yes.
Did you also have the opportunity to give advice on how this should be implemented?
Yes, that's why it was discussed on how to prevent, the insecurity aspect of it. And that is why it was approved that people we can start checking people before getting to the station. It was approved, not at the station. We discussed that, and we had that have to contribute that if you allow people to say you are get to the station to get tickets, what do you tell them when they are not able to, and the seats have been occupied? What do you tell them? Imagine somebody left Abuja, you have to come to Itakbe to use the train to Warri, and without tickets, he came to Itakbe. Are you going to ask him to go back? And the seats or the trains are completely filled up. So it's better you have your ticket and be sure. And this also an avenue for people to get used to the e-ticketing platform, because people still try to come and buy at the station instead of, I won't go to the airport without having a ticket.
Yeah, some people do. Some people still go to the airport.
But you will not complain if you don't have.
Yeah.
But because of the different characters we deal with at the train stations, quite different from what you deal with at the airport.
Okay.
That is a major thing you should note.
We'll still come back to at least the logistics part of it. Dr. Adamu, from an economic perspective, how do you see this?
Well, first, you have to look at the practicality of this policy. Look at the routes that Nigerians follow, especially the poor people. It's not everywhere where the train covers for that transportation purpose. And if you look at the minibus, the public buses that the government say want to subsidize 50%, how practical is it like for a driver at the public park to now say, I will collect 50% of the transport fare, believing or trusting that President Tinubu will pay him the other 50%? When and how much is that person going to receive eventually? And then most of these drivers, when they take passengers, they want to collect the money there then to fuel their car. And then how long are they going to wait to receive the remaining 50% from the government to fuel their car to travel from one place to another? Most of these drivers don't even trust the government. Some of them are not even aware of this policy. So it's something that we wake up in the morning and the minister is saying that there's going to be 50% transportation reduction. And that's another quick policy we've seen in this administration. I don't think much time and much thought has been given to this policy. From economic perspective, everything you want to do as a government, as a policy, you have to look at the costs and benefits. Only God knows how much bill is going to be presented to the government at the end of this exercise. And there's the accountability.
Is it really about everything you have to do? Because, I mean, for instance, they tell us that the rail doesn't really make profits. We just need to ease. Sometimes government takes on that burden. That's why it's called a subsidy.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, you talk about the train. I said not everyone can get the train.
Yeah.
And not everywhere the train goes. So, for example, I'm from Katsina. I want to go to Katsina. There is no train from Kaduna to Katsina. So even if the train is zero, all the poor people that will travel from Kaduna to Katsina, they're excluded. People that will travel from Kano to Sokoto, they're excluded. Okay, so the train being zero, it does not affect majority of the poor people. The target is not achieved. And
so eventually it appears as though, sorry to jump in, it appears as though they said, go board the buses at the parks.
Yeah, so I told you about that, because the drivers will not collect 50% from passengers.
Even if they've discussed with them?
With who? With the government?
With government? Do you think they will just announce this without doing this?
But do you think the drivers will trust that in the future, the remaining 50% will be given to them? Because I told you, these drivers don't have the money to even fuel their car now. So with which money are they going to even transport these passengers in the first place? So if the government really has thought about this, will have given these drivers in advance the other 50% that they will use to recoup the 50% reduction and to fuel their car. So you look at the cost and benefit. The benefit is the impact on the economy. Post this program, what's going to happen to the economy? Are we going to see any change? We are going to go back to square one. So you spend a lot of money and we are back to where we were. And the train, you see a lot of people trooping. A lot of people will not get a chance to get into the train. So this is something temporary. It's not for the long term. And as economists, when we look at policy, we look at sustainability of it. You start something, you stop. You are giving some people free ticket or discount on transport, and then a few days after, you're not giving them. So who's going to give them next? And what's going to happen to the economy? Are we going to see change? And these are all from the effect of the way the petroleum subsidy was removed. Because when you have to remove petroleum subsidy, there are so many stages you have to follow. Otherwise, you get yourself into this kind of situation, thinking of what to do, and trying things which might not work. So one of the things that they should have done is to invest in adequate, modern, and convenient mass transportation
system. They said they're
system.
working on CNG buses.
You see, these are things you do before you remove the petroleum subsidy, because the effect is going to be immediate and massive. Look at the inflation, close to 30%. These are all effect of it. No amount of subsidy in transportation will be enough to alleviate the poverty. And if you look at Abuja here, there are no options for mass transportation. Everyone must own their car if you have to travel. And if you have a big city like Abuja, like Lagos, where everyone must have a car, then you know that you don't have a sustainability in terms of your energy consumption. So big cities around the world, there are mass transportation where people don't have to use their transport, personal, so that you can reduce the cost, the expenditure per capita in the area of transportation. So for me, we should have to look at long term. Instead of spending money here and there and with no impact, we rather, if they have to go and invest in the transportation, let them wait for that. Instead of doing this short-term subsidy, let's do big one so that we can have the impact at once.
Well, some people will also say that, and I heard Mr. Dele Alake talk about how they're also trying to see how they can counter the fact that transporters take advantage of, people who want to travel in this season. We've seen how in many other places that you've mentioned, usually during the festive period, we'll see discounts, sales as a matter of fact, to celebrate with the people. But in Nigeria, reverse is the case. We increase the price of everything because we know people must buy. Even if you didn't buy rice the whole year, we know that during Christmas, people will buy rice. Most times, people reserve traveling until, the final part of the year. They know people must travel. And so we see that, independent transporters tend to prey on their customers. Do you think that will have any effect on the tendency of, transporters to want to do this in this season?
If the transporters have the intention or the tendency to increase the fares at this time, they will do it. This policy will not change anything. And we have to do sensitization, orientation of the people to understand that they are also responsible. Leadership is not only by the president or governors. We are all leaders at our levels. So if you have opportunity to make life easy for Nigerians, you should do it. But people have to feel that the government is doing enough for them so that they can also do their part. But if people are thinking that they are being shortchanged, they are their own government. They provide everything for themselves. The government is not any support to them. So they will explore any opportunity to exploit people. So for me, I think if we could have invested in modern transportation, especially transport systems that use alternative energy, that are cleaner and cheaper, especially the use of gas for transportation, which we have a lot of gas. So that could have reduced, even if there are tendency of increasing the fares, even if they have to increase it, it still not be as high as it will have been by now.
Mr. Okeria, you wanted to...
I just want to provide an insight about, the government is talking with the Transport Association. It's not that when you go to that park, you just join, it just come to 50% down. They've selected some routes, they've selected some transporters that are providing heavy mass transit, and they are providing, for instance, say, Abuja to Katsina. So company should provide the free, not that you go to that bus stop and you expect the driver there to reduce, some. And they have also done, because we all work together, the association of, and the president and secretary were in the meeting, and they have picked those they think they are reliable to provide this service.
Transport companies?
Yes.
So they have participating transport companies. And
not
it's totally optional.
Yeah. So it's not that you just go to this garage, you pay 50%. It's not like that. Some transport have been selected based on the association,
but
that they know they have reliable buses, not just this thing. So they have picked that and they have selected, I can't know how many buses now, but they have routes like Abuja, Lagos, Abuja, Kaduna, Abuja, Bauchi, something like that. And they have the number of buses that fly per day, and they will be monitored to ensure that they provide the number of passengers they have also already inputted.
Not fake your data.
No. They have provided your bus will carry as many people as that, and they are going to monitor it strictly to ensure that you perform. And I think if by today or tomorrow, I expect at least the money for diesel for me will come.
Okay. Okay, so at least you have told them in the NRC what you need.
Yeah.
And you're here right now to also shed light to Nigerians on how to benefit from this zero transportation happening on the rail system. And you said people need to go online. So I'm helping to reiterate what Mr. Okeria has said. You can only buy the ticket online. If you go to the rail station, you will not be able to get the ticket. But don't you think that there needs to be also mass awareness? Because look at, this is the headlines. Tinubu cuts transport fare by 50%. It has not said with participating companies. People don't know the details. So don't you think that there needs to have been, because this is almost knee-jerk somewhat. You said the thing is to start today. The announcement was made the day before. There wasn't, sufficient awareness on people being able to plan their journeys and being able to benefit from this system. Isn't there a problem with that?
There is no time that is good enough. I've worked with government for a long time, and there's nothing you do, people will not have alternative option. Is to have the will to do it, and You don't expect the first day for it to be 100% perfect. That's what we accept. We are deceiving ourselves. So it's 15 days. As the doctor said, it's not just out of the blue. It is not what we sustain. I say, okay, let the transport be cheap forever. You correctly explained that because of the season, people reserve their journey at the end of the year. At least I must visit my village. And you know the rush this time. I think this Friday till the first weekend of the new year, people will definitely go and return back to their place where they have their livelihood. So we know this, and we expect the government has thought it wise. They know the pain the people are feeling, and supply and demand. You know, and there are going to be demand, and people always take advantage.
Okay.
So,
you want to say something?
I want just before he says something, I want him to add to this. You know, the arguments we had this morning was the fact that Chamberlain was feeling hard done by, that those who travel by air were not included. And he was wondering...
Well, part of what I'm asking is, what data the government are they going to rely on for this? Is it better to have just make this kind of announcement? Or if you really wanted so many people, the so-called poor people, to benefit from this, wouldn't you target some sort of waiver for the emoluments they get so that they will feel it? Because this is only 15 days. And it looks as if they don't know where to go, how do they get it? So if you really wanted to get to the poor people, you will get the allowances and let them get that cross-border.
Okay.
So that
but the argument, I'll go back to the argument which we had this morning, which is the fact that, you know, air transporters were not included. And people feel that, look, a lot of people are flying these days. A lot of people who fly these days are not necessarily rich people. They are not people who have it all. People fly for a number of reasons. People put all of their resources many times because of the convenience. Is it they realize they have not been attacked? They have been attacked. Buses are being attacked. You know, so sometimes people just pick these options because they weigh it all. And, you know, do you think that airlines, too, should have been given some sort of rebate so that people, too, who have to fly this season could have felt the discount?
You see, I'm not supporting the transportation subsidy at all. So I cannot support for the mass transit, so for the road transportation, no for the airlines.
You don't support it at all?
At all. Because you look at the accountability of it, which I like what you're talking about, data. Now, if these transporters say we transported 1 million people, how would the government get to know these are exactly 1 million people? So you have to look at where is the data coming from and whether these information are genuine or not. Then you look at the benefits. Now, the president gave me subsidy, went to my hometown, enjoyed my celebration, and came back to Abuja. What happened? What next? Has that changed anything? No impact on the economy. So we are looking at the long term and sustainability of it. And then if you look at now information, the management of the information is also not adequate, because when you are doing a quick, last weekend he said, they had a meeting with all this. Last weekend, today we are Thursday. So now, if I'm traveling to Casamance today, where do I go to get this bus? Do I know where? And do I know which bus? I don't have this information.
Right.
So the information is lacking, and that's why, because this program is being rushed, and there is no impact eventually.
All right. Ayo, Buki.
Yes, thank you, Chamberlain. Mr. Okiria, my question is for you. You said earlier that during the engagement, you know, at the ministry level, you had the opportunity to advise. I'd like to know what your advisory was, particularly for the implementation of this 50% reduction for the NRC.
What was advice?
This price reduction, our own is zero. So,
What was advice to the government?
What was your,
What was your advice to the government about it?
or they should provide what we enable us meet our costs to operate this thing, and they have taken that.
If you had an opportunity, I hope you can hear
So
me now.
advice.
If you had an opportunity, I hope you can hear me now, Mr. Okiria, would your advice have been different, particularly in the light of dwindling revenues of the NRC in recent times? Can you hear me now, Mr. Kiria? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. If you had an opportunity to advise differently, would your counsel have been different, particularly based on the concern about dwindling revenues of the NRC in recent times, which you had cause to speak about at the budget defense at the House of Reps in recent times?
You see, whether you provide free service or not, there's no way in we part on the dwindling economy. What will make us be competitive is to ensure we extend the track and services to every clinic of the country, so that people can actually patronize. We cannot make profit by passenger movement all over the world, but we can make it carrying freight, and that will balance the service you provide the people. As I said, God created us, and next to God is government. So if God provided, as I used to tell my friend, air, water, free, and government is to organize it, why wouldn't they do it and let the people benefit? I didn't choose to come out from Nigeria. Destiny brought me to Nigeria. So am I going to suffer from it? So the more, as I tell people, by the time we start doing business cases for government services, things became worse. I did do a study economy. I'm an engineer, but I read economy in secondary school. Luckily for me, I made A1. So, and people now start bringing business cases for things naturally government should provide. I tell people, when I was in primary school, after playing football, after closing of class, when I used to fab water on the street, and I put my head on the tap and cool myself down. But now, you say, okay, outline business case, this for business, this for government, and we are going down every day instead of having humanity in place to provide this service for people. And you see, countries that are doing that are being blessed, because not everything is business. It's a painful thing to say, but we must provide for the people, and we must ensure things God has naturally given to this country, all should benefit from it.
Are you trying to say that?
No, I'm not talking really now.
Are you trying to say that it's a sort of...
I provided advice for this program.
Okay.
And we met. Last weekend was not just the first time we were meeting. That was the finalizing stage where we get data and do some computation. So we have to know how many passengers each service we render carry per day. And instead of saying, okay, instead of saying, let's buy ticket for the people, provide those costs that will enable us operate without saying, imparting on after the 15 days how to continue. And the government took that and they are providing it.
Are you trying to say that this is a sort of subtle or passive marketing strategy for the NRC because people are really not using the service as they should?
No, that's not correct. People are using, you can't imagine, people volunteer to stand from Itakpe to Warri because the volume of passengers going every day. You know, before the incident of the banditry, the passengers was rising, then it came down. But again, it's coming up, and it's costing us more now to operate too, because we have to provide that security required to ensure that people will have minimum safety on train, both inside the train and outside the train at the train station, and have some little technology at least to monitor what happened on the track when staffs are not there. So I would say it's more expensive to operate now, but we just have to provide those services for Nigerians.
You said you were at the engagement where the 50% rebate was also discussed for the road transport sector. Would there have been more clarity for how that would be implemented? And specifically, should government have made the payment ahead of time just to secure the commitment of the road transporters?
So at 9:30 yesterday, I still left my minister and the road association in a meeting finalizing the modality. I know by the end of today, I think the program should be out. So that's what I can say on that. But I left them in the office.
I have more questions, but I'll yield the floor now for
Thank you, Bukola. Well, let me come to Prof. You know, when you were talking the other time, you were talking about the fact that, you know, how will the modalities go, particularly for public transport services that are operated by the private sector. Are you in any way comforted or satiated in any way by the response that Mr. Engineer Okiria gave the other time about the selected transporters?
Yeah, like I said, if you say selected, that means there is inadequacy, because you cannot select few transporters to transport everyone. It means that let me give you a perspective. If there are 100 people that go to Katsina today, and then you are selecting few transporters, those transporters will eventually transport not more than 40% of those people. So the remaining 60% are left out. And then you have to also look at the information and the accountability process of that. How do you trace and account for those people that be discounted? So for me, generally, it's the impact that I don't associate with, even though there are modalities which he said, but we have not seen them on public. Okay. The only thing we've seen is the announcement that is going to start today. And something that is going to start today, the information should not be available today. It should have been available a week ago, 3 days ago. And that's why we said, if you have to come up with policy, you have to think about it. You have to plan for it. You have to look at the consequences, what's going to happen at the end. Because the reason why we are doing all these things is to have impact on the economy. And if there is no impact on the economy, then why should we lose money? What if eventually the government will spend 1 billion naira on this program? Spending 1 billion naira and going back to square.
Perhaps, you know, what you are essentially telling us, Prof, my apologies for butting in. Perhaps one of the things you are telling us is that government has to find a way to be accountable in this. But, you know, when you were talking the other time about, you know, how the whole thing was going to go, how is government engaging the transporters? I remember, and I'm sure you do as well, that government engages public transporters, transport operators, for election purposes through the Independent National Electoral Commission. So how do you think it'll be difficult to get the accountability system going now when we have a kind of template, you know, in that these transporters are used, and we've been using them since the Fourth Republic began for logistic purposes? How do you think that will be difficult now?
Well, I don't trust that there's going to be a genuine and trustworthy accountability process in this. Because, like I said, if we have to rely on the road transporters, there is going to be some information asymmetry, because some information will not be much available to the government. The government will be difficult to hold those guys accountable. They can present any kind of bill, and then the government, I don't think, has any mechanism at place to trace that or to account for that. So for me, even if it has been done before, that should not justify doing it today, especially looking at the cost and the benefit and sustainability of it. So if you have done something adequate in the past, and it does not mean that you should keep doing it. It is not giving you the right result. So it's not about whether we have done it or not.
I just want to, ask two things that I'd like you to speak to very quickly. Number one, do you think it would have been better if government didn't do anything? And secondly, now that the federal government has done this part, don't you think it's also an opportunity for the states to intervene so that we can have more coverage, as opposed to not doing anything at all?
Yeah, you see, the last question is good, because, the states should have been the ones doing some of this kind of intervention as a temporary measure. The federal government should not do nothing. Of course, doing nothing is not an option, but doing the right thing. Why we are questioning this policy is not because we don't want government to work. We want them to work on the right things. And that's why I talk about sustainable investment in the transportation sector, especially transiting from the PMS and diesel usage to more cleaner and cheaper transportation. For example, the federal government can also open the railway system to allow private investors to build railways and allow private participation to also own these trains and these coaches. It would have been better for the government to focus on these sustainable policies and allow the states to do these short-term measures. The federal government should be looking at the long-term and sustainable policies, because the government will not be an efficient manager of this system. And I think the rail transportation will allow for a cheaper transportation system for a large population of Nigerians. So for me, I think we should focus on the policy of extending the railways across the country, providing alternative buses that use renewable or cheaper and cleaner energies, and allowing private participation to own these trains and coaches. The government can still control the railways after giving a concession to private sectors, so that maybe the charges on using the railways will still come to the government. But the ownership of those trains and coaches will be by the private participants, like we used to have in the UK.
Okay, we're going to wrap up now, but Mr. Kuria, so, I mean, we all want government to work. We want a good country so that everything can go smoothly. That's what everybody wants, I guess. But at the same time, people are working really hard to pay taxes. So they need to see that their taxpayers' money is utilized properly. So when people say accountability is key here, so what kind of thinking did you get in that meeting? When was there questions of accountability in terms of, if we needed to interrogate this, how much has government budgeted for this? Are we going to be able to see those details published so that people can ask questions, say, this is the amount of money that was budgeted and spent, and who got what? Will they publish that?
No, that's...
I mean, in terms of what was the thinking?
No, for my sector,
yeah,
I did some calculation. We are going to get 409 million for supply of diesel for 15 days. I'm not interested in the money, I just want the diesel. I will know how much per liter per diesel. I will know how much of diesel we use per day. And we know how many passengers we carry per day on the different routes.
So what's the maximum number of passengers that you can take throughout the season?
Like for Abuja, Kaduna, with average of 1,800.
Per day?
Yeah.
For 15?
For the whole day, yeah. Then Lagos, Ibadan, we have 1,900 and something. Then for the Lagos mass transit, we have close to 3,000 a day. That's from Ijoko to Ido, then Agbado to Apapa.
Are those the only functions?
It's Warri.
Okay.
I think, about 1,800 a day. But now that we know it's festive period, people will move massively.
Do you intend to increase the number of services that you operate?
No, we are not increasing. We are adding more coaches.
You're adding more coaches? Yeah. Okay, so you intend to be able to take more people, yeah. But you're not going to increase the frequency?
No. Because we are trying to limit our service only for day. We don't want to go into the night.
Okay.
All right, we need to go. So, but there are still very many unanswered questions about some of these things. So I know it's for a time limit, but at the same time, if it's expenses that will not improve the economy generally, if it's a luxury, just wonder. But this is how far we can go on this segment this morning. Mr. Fidel Okera is the Managing Director of Nigeria Railway Corporation. That's the NRC. He's given us data concerning what will happen there. And then Ahmad Adamu, Associate Professor, Department of Economics, Nile University of Nigeria in Abuja. Thank you for coming on today as well.
Thank you so much.
All right, well, back in a moment. Stay with us.
heartburn and indigestion? Try Gestede. My recommendation for the past 26 years, Gestede. Reliable remedy for heartburn, indigestion, flatulence, and acidity.
Who's your guy? Now Olumide Akpata. See how sweet they like beans and rice. Labour Party, I will never leave your side. I will never ever. I dedicate my time forever. Time to you, my people. Even if the road be rough, I know mine. Cause together we shall stand. Labour Party, who's your guy? Now Olumide Akpata. See how sweet they like beans and rice. Cause together we shall.
Back to Sunrise. Didi Lalakone joins us now from our presidential aide. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
So that announcement came through yesterday. Of course, you have people who will punch the air in excitement that this is the case, just listening or hearing the news. But I think some will be disappointed if they're not sure where they can find the services and make use of it before the timeline expires. But the thinking behind this, I mean, well, much as it's good to know or hear or see that there's some sort of, at least, consideration, but there are question marks about the coverage and several other things. So for you, I mean, probably two caps now. You have an idea of how government thinks when they are formulating this kind of policies. Then as a reporter, who will also be questioning those policies to see if it can stand the test of time. So what's your impression of this policy, this announcement?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, especially having listened to the previous segment, I think there are still places where government needs to cross the T's and dot the I's, you know. But I think clearly, you know, and, you know, we come hard on the government when we think we have to. But I think this is something that's a good gesture. And I think we have to give them the credit in terms of trying to address, you know, what we have described as a crisis of insensitivity. This shows a little bit of being sensitive, you know, to the people. A lot of people are going to be traveling. Normally, the fares go up, you know, during these festive seasons. So I will say that, you know, the government deserves some commendation, you know, for this gesture by itself, you know. So but like I said, there are still issues to be sorted out.
So if governments were actually thinking to ensure that people don't get the short end of the stick during this period, one would have thought if they really wanted to address that for the poor people, or for everybody, or for most people who are in that sector of those areas, what would have been wrong with them saying, you know what, we need to look into what's the basis of this transport cost going up arbitrarily in the first instance, to address that before you then say, okay, we'll give 50% subsidy. Because it almost comes across as though they're saying, okay, well, yeah, increasing your fares for whatever reason seems justified, but we'll give you something so that people don't feel the end. And then secondly, too, okay, maybe you should respond to that before
and that's the hard part of governance. You know, and one of the things that I have found out is that if number one, you know, and I mean the president, if the number one is not hands-on and insisting on the result, you know, people can easily just drop the ball very easily. And I've seen that in my 8 years. That this is what we're supposed to do. This is the objective. If you don't have somebody who is actually doing almost a daily monitoring, you know, requiring you to be accountable, things just fall through the cracks. Which goes to your point that, look, so what is the long-term plan to assuage you know, the high cost of transportation. You know, especially since after the subsidy removal. And I have said that, look, one of the things that we should have seen a lot of activities on is the CNG. Now, I think that is picking up, you know, little by little now, you know. But yes, I mean, there should normally be an overview of everything, but it takes a lot of work, and that work must start from the president, who will insist on the results.
Now, that question also comes at the back of, I mean, in some climes where you've been largely in the States, where even if you have to do certain transactions in those climes, you know, even if you are in this clime, doing business in that clime, you could almost be confident that, look, people won't take advantage of you because the rules and the laws and processes are there, they're well established.
Yeah.
Even if they're going to have their profit margin, there's a certain trajectory, threshold that they can't cross. And if they dare cross it, the law will come down very hard on those people. So that's why government is there to ensure that those things exist in the first place. So if they don't exist, I mean, as a journalist, how are you then going to interrogate some of this? And if they tell you, well, if there's no data, your report won't make sense if you're filing any report.
Well, I mean, you're right. And I think one of the things that they are actually going to get, if this is done properly, is that they're going to get a lot of very important data, you know, about people traveling, about how many people traveling at particular times. You know, if this is properly managed, they can actually get a lot more information that can help going forward to try to address, especially in that sector, the challenges of transportation, road transportation. But it is very important that we get this right, in that state governments should also play a role. You know, I mean, if all we are doing is just those of us in Abuja, those of them in government in Abuja, trying to sort this out without the state government, there may be, you know, something may be wrong there. It's important to also engage the state government to say that, look, this is the number of buses in your state that are going to be taking off and arriving, you know, because they also have a lot of control, if not influence, on the road transport workers there. Most of the time, they're actually under the state
government. Let's not forget, look, how many people actually go to the bus parks and pick? Most people who would rather use their cars and travel. Most people drive and travel. And part of the reasons why, because again, the data, we don't have a lot of those to actually interrogate and find out whether or not this will address. And it's not only SUVs that travel on the road. In case they're thinking it's for big people that travel on the roads.
I'm trying not to chuckle. I almost assumed for a moment that Chamberlain was going to say most people don't go to the parks, and they just go to the roadside, and that's how they travel. You know, during the season, I know that the FRSC is also there advising people, go to designated parks. But you still find that because people are trying to cut costs, they will go to the roadside and see how it is that they can enter those that are loaded. It's extremely risky, but people are still doing it.
Especially now.
Especially in this season. So what I'm really curious about is, because government is supposed to be the greatest good to the greatest number. You know, yes, that's what it's supposed to be about. And so there have been questions as to whether they have deployed any data. Because I was just asking Mr. Okiria now about how many people they can take on a daily basis. If you say zero fare, how many people would this really affect? I'm looking at all the routes that they operate internally. By internally, I mean even intrastate and interstate. And the figures I'm seeing here is about 12,000 people a day. That is really, really, really minute.
It's a far cry.
Exactly. It's a far cry from the number of people compared to how much we're going to be spending. So he gave an idea. He says that it's 410 million for diesel alone. It doesn't cover the cost of cleaners, and because all of these services are things that they provide. So let us just wrap up and say maybe 600 million. This is me just doing it off the top of my head. That's not how much they have said. It could be about that. It might not be up to that. But let's just say 600 million thereabout. Can we really say that, you know, and this is just for rail transportation to maybe 12,000 people a day, over a period of 15 days, looking at how much you're going to be spending, can we really say that how much the amount that government is spending is truly justifiable? Would that really be the greatest good to the greatest number?
Yeah, well, you know, I see your point very clearly. But I think it's important to say that whatever government spends, you know, in this kind of gesture, in this kind of service, is well worth it, you know, because at the end of the day, like you said, government ought to be and should be about the people. I mean, we need to, and I think Mr. Okiria, you know, made some points along that line that, look, some of these things essentially social service. You know, that's what it ought to be. You know, so we don't have to, it's not every time that we calculate, you know, the cost and the profit and all of those stuff. Yeah, of course, we should be accountable.
No, this is not about profits.
No, I'm just saying.
If we were to, you know, implement subsidies, because this is some form of subsidy, right?
Yeah, temporary.
You have to ask, where is it that we can give subsidies in such a way that it will affect the greatest number? Isn't that's essentially the question that I'm asking?
The point that I'm making, that I was getting to, is that if you listen to Mr. Dele Alake yesterday, he did say that there will be mini buses and then there will be luxury buses. Now, I hope that the mini buses means those buses that you find in the parks that are not luxury buses, which I think will seem to carry more people.
The 16-seaters.
Yeah, the they call them E20, and you know that you know those minivans. But fine. So let me make one. So if those are included, you know, you are going to get a bit of impact. But it is only the luxury buses, you know, and I saw a list that is trending on social media that has a list of all the companies they're going to use, and they're, you know, for the luxury buses, and it's going to be 51-seater buses, you know. Not that is bad, but it has to include those buses, those mini buses that we find in the parks. You know, it will be very important that those ones are also involved so that the number can be enlarged. But you're right, you know, how many is it going to be at the end of the day? We're going to find out, you know. One of the things that I think is going to happen is that we're going to get a lot of that data about people traveling, how many people travel, and all those kind of stuff that can also help in planning going forward. And I agree that this can be done in a much bigger way. But I don't mind the fact that they're starting, you know, there's some signs of sensibility that, okay, look, what can we just do for now? It's not a bad idea.
I understand. To be honest, I think it's a great idea as well. But I mean, my optimism usually dies when it comes to implementation with my country. You know, when it comes to the nitty-gritty.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
So I mean, for instance, I mean, I've just thinking in my head, wouldn't it have made more sense for us to say, for this season, if you drive into an NNPC station, and there are lots of them in almost every state.
Right.
You know, maybe you get to buy fuel at this price. That covers everybody. I don't know how much that will be. That will cover a lot of people. There might be queues at NNPC station. Yeah. But for those who decide, I don't want to go to NNPC, it was your choice. You're removing your glasses. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Few subsidy right there.
This is subsidy anyway. Some will say it's, you know, there are different ways there are many ways to skin a cat. Isn't that what they say? So if the idea was to actually affect the pockets of the masses and make sure that people have more money in their hands, you know, there'll be many ideas. I don't know, but this is what we currently have. This idea of, you know, giving people. I'm also wondering if this doesn't, because we haven't heard the details of how this is going to work, whether they're working with NURTW. But Mr. Okiria was making reference to participating companies.
Right.
We also know that usually...
Those are luxury buses.
No, not really luxury buses. They're companies that also operate, you know, this, is it, I don't even know, is it 16-seater buses? Or there are companies that do that. A lot of companies that we know that do that. But people who patronize these companies, especially the ones that have their names on their buses, are people sometimes too who are at a certain level
of comfort.
Exactly. The people who patronize the other people who do not have names, who are using what they call it now.
They say they are all poor.
Oh, you'll be surprised, Chamberlain. Are people who earn at a certain level. So I'm really wondering whether there is really a way that government could have targeted this in such a way that it wants to be accountable, it wants to be able to hold these people responsible, but at the same time, you also want to be able to affect the poorest of the poor. I mean, you want to be able to affect people who are between a certain earning class, so to speak.
Yeah.
Isn't it a very big dilemma? I hope you see the point I'm trying to make.
I see the point. Essentially, you're saying that, look, how can it be done to take more people in, and are we just dealing with people who can afford a particular level of comfort with luxury buses? And that's why I said that it's important to also include all those minivans. It's very, very critical. And I'm hoping...
Minivans that do not have names.
Yeah, exactly. The ones that you find in the parks, where they have the conductor hailing people, Lagos.
To include
Lagos,
those people?
No. I'm saying that those buses...
Those kind of parks.
That are in the parks.
Interstate travel.
Where people are saying that, you have about 5 more people to go and we are heading to Lagos from Ibadan. Those buses are actually at the center of those transportation. Very important.
Part of why I was asking
as long as that is included, I think we can make a bit of
How
impact.
feasible is it for government to include those classes of people, knowing that they're not usually when I mean registered, I mean like it's not like they have a company name,
Well, thank you for asking that question. It will interest you to know that those NURTW associations are very effective. They are extremely very effective in all the parts. They have executives.
All right.
They even have offices in all the parks, and they know who is going to where when.
The thing is, look, if I were in government, that's what I was asking about, the thinking behind some of this and how they think up there, because after all, they're there to do the hard thinking, the hard job. Critical thinking is very, very important at this point of our lives, and as always. But I would have thought as well that they would have done this thing to ensure that they encourage people to be structured in that transport sector, because we don't have a structured transport system in the country. That is one way they could have said, listen, I'm looking to see how I can get people to see reason why they should structure themselves in that sector. But it's a different conversation entirely, because, let me ask this before we wrap up. Inside Sources is kicking off tomorrow.
Yes.
That's a new program by yourself.
By 9 a.m., yeah. And the idea behind the program is to bring to the fore the kind of information that will be useful generally for public interest. You've heard the saying that information is power. And then one of the most significant things that came out in terms of communication and narratives in the last presidential election was when now the president said that power is not served a la carte. And he went all out to get the power, did a diligent job. Now, the same thing, the power that we say is for the people, there has to be diligence in the way that it is also presented and actually procured. And so we need to give information to the people, otherwise the people will not have the power. And so Inside Sources is going to, try to attain that, to give the people information that will make the people to be powerful, and that ultimately will serve the public interest better.
All right, so people need to look out for that program. It comes up tomorrow. Today's Thursday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Okay, so 9 a.m. tomorrow. Make it a date with Lalu on that day. So
thank you.
Let me quickly take a look at this message, if we can. It's about this 50% transport fare reduction. That dead and hokey says, I don't think this is the best way to go about it. We're going to have challenges with accountability. And also, many families use their private vehicles to travel. How are they going to benefit from this? If government truly wants to help Nigerians in this difficult time, what to do is to waive December payee to all employees, or 50% of December payee. Everybody will collect his money or her money from his employer along with his December salary. I think that way everybody will go home smiling.
Well, I know that it's far a lot more. Let me see now. Festus Akimboyewa. The first time I traveled to UK in 1982, my return ticket was 452 naira, but return ticket now is nearly 1.5 million naira. It's absurd. I think government's discount is mere politics, as Nigeria's income has been squeezed by inflation, especially rising fuel and food prices.
Okay, we need to wrap up. Bayer was talking about transport. As if we don't see logistics, they always come late for elections. Okay, we'll see you all tomorrow. That's the show. Goodbye. I'm Chamberlain myself.
Well, all the best. Thank you for writing in. I'm Mark Pelgrim, Yusuf.
Thank you for your emails. We'll take more tomorrow. I am Bukola Koka.
Now let you have the last say, Chamberlain. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm Ayo Makinde.